So carrying on with the previous video of the series about Isekai genre, well, we kind of stopped at Isekai and armies. And, well, while there are many Isekai animes, it's not quite easy to sort them out one by one, so it kind of took a while. But I've got a certain well, it's not really a strict genre, it's just a similarity, a cliche amongst the stories. It's the overpowered protagonist. Okay, where do I even start with this one? Is it good? Is it bad? On a fundamental level, I don't think it's bad. I think it's good. Why? The whole point about fantasy is you want to feel strong. And what you're gonna do most of the time with those particular series is you're gonna empathize or sympathize with the protagonist. You're gonna depict yourself as the protagonist. You're going to compare what you would have done in that situation if you had those powers to what the protagonists are gonna do in those situations with their powers. That's why sometimes you'd go, ooh, that's dumb. Ooh, that's dense. Ooh, I would have realized that there was a conspiracy. Ugh, I would have boned that girl. I would have boned that chick. I would have gone and entered that brothel. I would have taken up the offer. Those kinds of things. Let's face it, you have at one point in time. And I wouldn't blame you. That's the whole point. That's why role-playing games like D&D are popular. Because people want to feel like they're in control. They want to feel strong. And it's not a bad thing. So, why is this particular genre and this particular type of light novels often being bashed at? It's really because of the execution, really. For example, if you get to know more about overpowered characters like Kirito, would you complain? No, you wouldn't. If you could experience what Kirito went through to get the power he got, like the beta testing phase, if you know what Kirito has to go through, you wouldn't be complaining half as much, right? Because then you think that the power is earned. At least you'd feel that way. But what about other situations? I mean, Overlord. Momonga is very clearly overpowered. If you're reading a light novel, sure, there might be some that might be able to rival him. Spoiler, Platinum Dragon Lord. But why aren't people complaining as much? It's because of how the overpowered characters are written and executed. Kirito is kind of perfect to an annoying degree. Now, as a character, I do enjoy Kirito because I don't really think that much about girls are falling in love with this guy for no reason left and right. He is too overpowered. Why didn't he help the other players? I don't think about it that way. I just think, wait a minute. You get the bonus for the last hit kill. You want that bonus. You know you want it. Would you let other players know? Because that way they would also want it. Why would Kirito create a competition for himself? In that sense, I am justifying his actions. Which is why I don't really hate Kirito as a character. In fact, I quite enjoyed it. It's a realistic point of view in terms of a gamer's point of view. Especially if you can die in real life if you die in the game. Which is not quite the fun experience, though I definitely want to sign up for SAO if it's ever real. But yeah, it is what it is. But people, because they don't see it, because they don't think the way that I'd like to think of Kirito, they simply bash on him as a poorly written character. And it's not really wrong. It's good, but it could have been better. I enjoy it because of my own unique point of view over the narrative, and the character itself. So, good for me, I guess. But what about the others? It's not quite the same now, is it? Momonga. Clearly overpowered. In a sense, way more overpowered compared to Kirito. We don't complain about it because his power is not the appeal of the show. Yeah, he can one-shot everybody. But that's not what the show's about. It's more convoluted, it's more psychological, it's more politics. So even though you have that immense power that, yes, can be used as a bargaining chip in a political fight, in a political warfare, it's not the main appeal. It's not the main show. The main show is about the inner conflict of Momonga, the person who he really is, and Eins Ulgon, this ideal setup that the NPCs have of him, an image of him. That's the kind of conflict. That's the appeal, the main appeal of the show. That's the kind of stuff overpowered protagonists can be. They can be the deciding factor of the show just by being written poorly or being written well. Examples? Well, let's take... Does Goblin Slayer count? I mean, he's kind of overpowered compared to goblins. Nah, not really. He's not overpowered. He's an average show. It literally says so on the show itself. So let's take another one. Let's take Isekai overpowered. Subaru is definitely overpowered. I mean, think about it. He literally cannot lose unless you break his mental will. And that's kind of hard, considering he's the way he is. Well, in a way, yes, but no. But even though he has all that power, even though he literally cannot lose, except for some peculiar circumstances, it's enjoyable because, well, in ReZero case, it's all about the blood and gore, it's all about the cruelty, it's about shoving reality in your face, down your throat, and even when you're choking, you're still gonna have it shoved down your throat. That's the way Natsuki Subaru is written. It's overpowered because he cannot lose. But it's also interesting because it's exactly because he cannot lose that he has to suffer. So his strength is literally the source of his suffering. That's the kind of story it is. It's a well-written story. Let's take another one. Overpowered character in Isekai. Shield Hero. It looks underpowered, but it turns out to be overpowered. Right? Why is it interesting? Because of the psychological turmoil, the psychological problem he carries. He has trust issues. Even against Raftalia, she still remains a slave. When he decides to finally free her, Raftalia is like, nah, you have trust issues. So if this lets you trust me, I'll just remain a slave. You don't really treat me like a slave, so I'll just stay a slave. It's those kind of interactions between the overpowered characters and the other characters, or the very world they live in itself. That is what makes or breaks a story with overpowered characters. So, what's interesting? Well, it's animated, but it's gonna take a while for the story to actually conclude because, trust me, what's currently animated as of this recording right now, it's literally just the prelude. It's not even the main story yet. Trust me. Mushoku Tensei, that's what I'm talking about. Another one, Overlord. It's slowly catching up to the source material, and I fully enjoyed it. By source material, I mean the light novel, not the web novel. I wish they would animate the web novel, but I highly doubt they would because of how much worse it gets when it comes to sexuality, blood and gore, and all that good stuff, which is probably still too far. But hey, because of the recent trend in animation, maybe not. So, fingers crossed, hopefully they do. Maybe make it an OVA or something. I hope. I wish. it is what it is. But it's enjoyable. So, yeah. Another one, because I want at least 4 recommendations, right? Isekai, overpowered, good stuff. That's pretty simple, isn't it? I mean, we've literally got at least an Isekai show every single season. There's gotta be more. And there is. Next season, Mushoku Sensei is gonna get the 2nd season. But on a similar note, there's Seikai Saikyo no Ansatusha, which is world's greatest assassin. Isekai Kizoku ni Tensei Suru, reborn as another world noble. According to what I've read in the light novel and the manga, it's gonna be interesting. It's an interesting plot because the main character, the overpowered protagonist, is not the general dance protagonist, no. He's a combatant in his previous life. And the way he acts is different, so it's kind of interesting. Now, there will be a harem tag on it, because, it's Isekai. But it's different. At least in my opinion, it's different. And then, there's Shoujo Senki. She's overpowered, but it's interesting because she doesn't want to use her power due to her own gripes about the source of said power, which is interesting. That way you have a dynamic between the overpowered character and herself. But because her power is granted by another person, that person can also screw her up by granting a similarly overpowered power to another adversary, which is exactly what happened in the movie. So there you have it. Isekai and overpowered doesn't mean it's a bad show. It simply means that it might cater to a certain person's preferences, while it might not for another person's preference. For me, I enjoy it because that's what fantasy is about for me. Now, don't get me wrong, I also enjoy the weak to strong genre, but you can't deny that strong from the start and overpowered is, in a way, enjoyable as well. It's a guilty pleasure, really. Many people won't admit they enjoy it, but deep down they probably are enjoying it. So, yeah. See you next time. See you on the next video about, well, this particular series.